Joining me now from our bureau in New York City, board-certified family physician, Dr. Jonathan Vitale. Jonathan, doctor, it's great to see you.
Hey, Stephanie, thank you so much for having me on the program. It's good to be here.
Of course. So what are your thoughts on the effort to reopen schools? And I was actually kind of surprised that Governor Cuomo is all on board with this.
Yeah, well, Stephanie, I think that we have to realize that New York State, by and large, is in a pretty good place right now in terms of coronavirus. School has so many other benefits for children other than just learning. I mean, they also get social support there from school psychologists. They get socialization. They get extracurricular activities like sports and music. A lot of kids, it's their only place to get nutrition for the day is school. But we have to be really smart about it. So in New York State now, the percentage of positive COVID tests is right around 1%. Mayor de Blasio doesn't want to do this unless we keep those levels beneath 3%. And he's asking, so is Governor Cuomo, for all schools to submit their plans. I think that's a good idea. We have to be very smart about how we do this and make sure that every school has a really good plan for how to do this so that we can prevent the situations like we saw in Georgia, where a school opened that had a photo of kids all crammed into a hallway and they had a spike in COVID cases. We can't have that. So I think it's okay for us to do because kids get so many other benefits from in-person learning, but we have to be smart about it, and that's probably going to include a hybrid option as well.
Yeah, you're talking about this crowded hallway, and so it's like a nice talking point, reopen schools safely. But like, what does that even mean, and what would you recommend when you say safely? Because as you know, many classrooms across the country are totally crowded. So how do you separate kids, and you think about how you can actually catch coronavirus from touching surfaces? And how do you change the idea of so many people walking in a hallway at the same time when they have to get to class?
Yeah, exactly. And schools have to be really smart about this. I think that schools need to make sure that they're not at maximum capacity, probably 50% or lower capacity for schools. They also have to make sure that maybe they stagger the students who are in the school and those who are at home learning. Make sure that what we're always doing now with the facial coverings, making sure everybody's wearing a good face mask, wearing it appropriately, making sure we have good hand hygiene, desk hygiene, making sure that it's clean areas to eat at, and then also making sure that they maintain that social distance. So this is probably an opportunity to transform American education as it is, because we already know a lot of classrooms are really crowded. But we have to make sure that students are not just at home trying to learn through an iPad or through a computer, because we know that that's a struggle for students and their families to do. So I think that we can do this safely, but we have to be very smart about it.
Yeah, distance learning has its pros and cons, of course, but I know that every parent that I've talked to, they all want their kids to go back to school, of course, in a safe way. They don't want them to bring back coronavirus or catch coronavirus, even though the rate of young children catching coronavirus is very, 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 very slim. Now, I want to ask you, you live in New York City, and I'm sure you've been following this very closely. What would you rate Governor Cuomo's leadership when it comes to coronavirus?
I think that there's a lot we have to learn from this. Governor Cuomo did pretty well in terms of the press conferences, but it was not a good idea to let all those patients back into nursing homes who had COVID. That was a very bad idea. So I think that that was probably the biggest problem he had in trying to manage the coronavirus. But at this point, we're doing pretty well in this state in terms of managing corona. Our positive COVID tests are around 1%. We're doing much better than a lot of the southern states, much better than Georgia, Mississippi, Texas, Florida right now in managing it. But we don't know what it's going to look like once schools reopen and as we get into the fall. I mean, keep in mind, Stephanie, that New York City, where I live, we shut down completely for months. And that was what needed to happen. And a lot of these other places in the country didn't really do that. And they had opening that happened too soon. They were opening up bars and restaurants and nightclubs and movie theaters way too soon. And that was causing other peaks. So I hope that we continue to not get ahead of ourselves here in New York, and that we continue to be very cautious and strategic about how we do reopenings.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One American News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One American News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.